Take a moment to shine on Happy Camper Life. We're loving, living, and learning online on Happy Camper Life.
I'm Allison Miller, the founder of Happy Camper Live, and we are here at our podcast, Raising a Happy Camper. And I am so excited today because I have a happy camper with me. I have Eden Martin today on our podcast, who is an author who wrote the book, Notes from the Camp Bunk, a guide for first-time campers from a camper. Eden, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, my name's Eden Martin. I'm 13 years old, and I've been going to camp since I was 8 years old.
That is so awesome. I'm just so thrilled to talk to you because not only am I the founder of Happy Camper Live, I'm a real life camp director too, Eden. So when I read your book, I was so excited. I was like, here is something that the world needs. Like, you saw a need and you filled it. So tell me, how did it come about that you wrote this amazing book?
Yeah, well, there's a book called Homesick and Happy, which I would always hear my mom suggest. It's by Dr. Michael Thompson, and it's a great book for nervous parents who are nervous about like sending their kids to camp for the first time. And I noticed that there wasn't one for the actual camper, so I just decided to write one myself.
Wow. So you noticed it, and like a lot of kids notice things, and a lot of people have ideas, right? But not everybody like does anything about it. So I'm like that entrepreneur, right? And you have that, sort of entrepreneur spirit, because what did you do? You took action, right? You wrote this book. So tell me what that process was like for you, like putting the book together.
I mean, I think that I definitely was more motivated some days than others, especially because I wrote a lot of it during the pandemic. And I was on Zoom all day anyway, so I couldn't really go on my computer more. But I think at the end, it was really nice to see it come together and like help other kids who like are nervous and like just like, first time going to camp.
Yeah, and it's so well thought out. I know you had, some support along the way, and you made some dedications in the book, which I'll save for people who are buying them, or unless you want to mention them. But it's very, very well thought out. And before we kind of jump too far into the book, we'll definitely get back to it. I just want to talk to you about camp. You want to talk about camp? You're like, yes, I totally want to. So like, what are some of your favorite things about camp?
I mean, for me, my favorite thing about camp is like my friends, because I get to have like a whole nother group of friends, like apart from my school friends, and like who live all over the US. And I think that's really fun.
Yeah, so that's really cool. You're actually on the West Coast, and you come all the way to the East Coast to go to camp, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So when you talk about your friends being like really the most important part, these are going to be, lifelong friends for you.
Yeah.
They're people that you've met when you started camp. How old were you? Did you say? 8. So by the time you graduate from camp, you're probably going to have friends that you've known 6 to 8 years. And those are very deep, special relationships. And I couldn't agree with you more that like, that's really what camp's about. Whether you mention this in your book too, it doesn't matter if you go to camp for like 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. The fact that you get the opportunity to go to camp, is incredible. And if anybody has that opportunity, don't you agree, Eden? Like, take it. Like,
yes.
Don't let these concerns get in the way, because if you have concerns, don't you worry, because Eden is here to save the day, and she's going to help you work through those concerns, right? So I always say yes, right? If you have the opportunity, you're fortunate enough to go to camp, we're just going to say yes. And this is why Eden wrote the book. So tell me why you think kids should go to camp.
Well, I think that one of the reasons is like the kids get to become like more independent, and they survive however long they went like without their parents being there. And it kind of just like feels good when you get home knowing that like you didn't like you survived that long without your parents, without your phone, and just like made friends on your own. And I think that's really nice. You also like are doing so many activities and try more. Like personally, I've never done lacrosse before I went to camp, but I actually really enjoy it at camp. And it's something like I don't really get to do at home. So I think that's super duper fun. And just again, just like the camp friends, lifelong friends.
Yeah, it's so amazing how it provides this experience, because you're living with kids, 24/7. It's not like school. It's school, maybe you see your friends on the weekend, or maybe you go and play lacrosse and you see them a couple of times a week. But when you're at camp, you're 24 sleepaway camp, that is, it's 24/7 for whatever amount of time. And it's those times really, Eden, like when you're not doing lacrosse or arts and crafts and stuff, where you bond. It's in between the periods when you're talking and singing and cheering, or doing some silly evening activity or at night, or just going to bed like at the end of the day, and you're just like, hanging out. I always say it's like one big sleepover, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any tips that you can offer for kids that are thinking about going to camp and, feeling a little nervous? I know that's really a lot of the book. You want to share 3?
Yeah, so not in particular order, but I think one is definitely not to worry about not knowing anybody at camp. And I think that's actually a good thing because you get a whole fresh start, and like you don't have to worry about like that stupid thing you did in kindergarten. You get a whole fresh start, a whole nother group of friends. And like if something ever happened with like your school friends, you could always just like call your camp friends, and it's just like really like fun thing to have like a whole nother group. And also I think it's important to know that it can take a few days to kind of just get used to camp. Like
Mhm.
it's a whole new environment. Like you're without your parents, like you're in a bunk with other people. Like I think it's just new routines. And I think it can take a few days. And it's important not to judge those days and kind of just know that everybody else, even returning campers, are like going through the same thing. So like if it's a struggle, like you could always like talk to someone about it, but just know that it will get better and like you will have a amazing time. And also, I think it's super duper important to know that like there's always someone to talk to if you're feeling homesick. Like the staff are always trained to like deal with you like and help you get through your homesickness. Um and it also like your friends, there's head staff, there's directors, and yeah, they're all like trained to help you, and just know like that there's always someone there you can trust.
Yeah. Well, I think those are really good points. I'm going to kind of circle back on a couple of them. Okay. So you said that it's really normal for kids to adjust, right? 2 days, 3 days. And for some kids, it may be hard the whole time, but they're allowing themselves to have fun. And so we all expect that, it may not be that easy. And I was one of those kids, Eden, that I was a camper that missed home. Okay. From the moment the bus pulled in, it was hard for me. And I don't know why. It just was. It surprised me. And I'm going to offer a way that I was able to get through those few days where I was really missing home. And so, as you know, I'm a camp director. So what do? I really try to like keep my kids busy. And so this is a story from when I was 8 years old and I went to camp. I was really homesick, and they said to me, like, what do you like to do at home? And I don't know why I said I like boats, which I really didn't like too much, but I said I like boats anyway. And because I saw like the boat going around while they were asking me the question. So they put me on the boat, and I just like went around the boat until like, actually I was pretty tired of being on the boat. And then I was like, can I go back with my friends now? So I think just finding a way to keep busy, whether it's talking to somebody or taking a walk, asking a counselor to take a walk, or maybe organizing your stuff in your cabin, like maybe just, taking your stationery and like just keeping yourself busy is a really great way to get through that. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I think that like a good thing about camp is that you can always be doing something. You can choose to relax, but there's always options, whether it's like go out and play Gaga, like go play some basketball with your friends. Like you can always be distracting yourself with anything. And you could always just like if you want, you could just chill with your friends and relax.
Yeah, it's really good advice. And I have a question, like I know the answer, but what is Gaga?
It's definitely one of my favorite games at camp. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's like you have like a little like court, and then you basically kind of just like hit. Usually it's like a handball or volleyball, kind of depends whatever you have on you, and you kind of just like hit the ball with your hand, and you try to hit the other people by
Below the knee.
yeah, below the knee by hitting the ball. And you kind of jump and dodge it, and it's definitely one of my favorite camp activities.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of the most popular like camp activities. And then if you've never been to camp before, you're like, what's Gaga? And everybody's like talking about Gaga. And it's like, it's just a really, really, really fun game. And so I just want to tell people what that is. And then I have another question for you for people who may not know. So like, what does a bunk like look like? You know, what is a bunk or a cabin? Because they use both those names at camp. Some
Yeah.
camps even have tents, but let's just talk about like a bunk or a cabin.
I mean, every cabin and bunk looks a little different at every camp, or even just at the same camp. They all look a little different. I kind of look at it like a mini house in
Mhm.
a way, and it's like a mini house, and it has just like your beds, cubbies, and it's just where you all stay. There's usually like a little porch area where you could put like your sneakers and stuff. But yeah, I kind of think of it as a very mini house.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. Some camps, there'll be a bathroom inside the bunk and some, or cabin, and some they have like a separate area. So I really like the fact that you described it as a house, because it is, it's your summer home and you get your own bed and cubby space. And, you know, in a lot of camps, you can actually decorate it, right? You can bring things, or when your parents write letters to you, or you have something special from camp. Some camps let you put it up on the wall, right? And let decorate. So you can make your space really cozy. That also is like a good thing, you know, is just like kind of maybe bring some things from home, like pictures. Do you do that? Or do you have kids in your bunk that do that?
Yeah, I usually put a poster. I definitely put like photos of my dog up. But yeah, I definitely put like photos and, just like posters, just decorate it.
Yeah. And I think that helps, like people
Yeah.
adjust and stuff like that. So that goes into the tip of like, what do I bring to camp, right? So it's not just bringing your t-shirts and your shorts and things like that, but a few items from home. And I
Yeah.
think you even talk about stuffed animals a little bit in your book, like it's okay to bring things that are special, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I tell people, just don't bring anything too special that you might really be upset about if it doesn't, you know, if something happens to it. But yeah, there's also, I tell some people like bring a pouch if you have like a special blanket, and then you make sure you put it in the pouch at the end of the night or in the morning, so nothing happens to it. But it's very normal. Like lots of kids have little special things, right, that they bring with them.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. And then were talking about someone to talk to. So I think that is where camp is different, right? You know, your parents aren't going, you talked about being independent, but it's important to know that there are people there that are people that you can go to, not just if you're feeling homesick, but like if you need anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about like that? You know, you mentioned someone to talk to. Clearly the camp director, you do a really great job in the book talking about like a camp director's role. But you were explaining more the counselors, because you said people don't always understand like the counselors and what their jobs are. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think like counselors, like they're also just like really good to talk to about anything, like positive things too, about like an activity you both enjoy. And counselors are always really great. And they definitely do help a lot. I found like with homesickness, because a lot of them have been campers themselves. So they're very experienced and know how to like, the strategies they use. And they're all just like really nice, and you can make really strong connections with the counselors. And yeah, they're just all really great.
Yeah, counselors are awesome. And you know what? They give up their summer, right? They dedicate their summer. I shouldn't say give it up, but like they make a choice to be at camp, to be with kids. You know, they are, looking for the connections with the kids, with you, as much as you're looking for the connection with the counselors. And they are there, to make your summer great, and and to help you feel safe, and to know that there's always someone you can count on. And I think, you make a really great point of that in the book. And I would really encourage any kid that's going to camp for the first time, and even if they've been to camp before, to read your book. You did a fantastic job. And when I read that, I was like, I actually have new campers coming tomorrow to our new camper day. And I was going to recommend the book to them because you really do a fantastic job of really, digging into what the issues might be and concerns and ways that kids can support themselves at camp. And just by you taking the time to write this and think thoroughly about like, what kind of questions would you have and all of that. So
Thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job. One of the things you mentioned is the advantage of not going to camp with a friend. So a lot of times people will say, oh, I want to go with my friend to camp and I want to do this and that. And I'm on the same page with you in terms of what you've written here philosophically, and I would love for you to explain it.
Yeah, so I think when you go with just on your own, it like really opens you up to like a whole new crowd. And you also just get to be yourself. Like when you live with people, like you have to be yourself. And you'll be able to really like express yourself when there isn't your friend who's like, oh, why did you do that? Because you get a whole new start. And that's something like I really love about camp. And you get to just have more a chance to connect with the other campers because you're not just with your best friend, just talking to your best friend. And I think that's especially helpful like your first summer because you want to really push yourself to make all those new connections.
Yeah. And it's important to know that, you can't go to camp with a friend. Like that's great too, but if you have a choice, maybe choose not to be in the same cabin as them or bunk, that could be okay. So that at least you're having your own living situation that's different. But the idea of taking risks is what camp is about. It's called safe risks, right? And those kind of risks mean taking the opportunity to go off on your own to a summer camp and really allow yourself to be, I don't know if this word is one that is a big one for you, but we talk about being authentic, right? Your real true self is really what you're saying. And it's hard sometimes to be that when you're bringing with you all of your, you're in middle school, right? So all your middle school stuff and, someone kind of giving you oh, you don't like to dance at home. Now you're saying you like to dance. And, somebody kind of who's in the background, sort of judging, or you feel at least they're judging what it is that you're doing. So you do get a clean slate when you come to camp and you come on your own. Sometimes people come eat in with their like cousins and stuff, which kind of is sometimes cool because they may not even live near their cousins, but camp is a way that they can be together.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go with their siblings, which is great. And that's wonderful support. I went with my brothers to camp and that was really kind of cool for me because I knew they were there, but they weren't like right in my bunk, in my cabin and stuff like that. So there are ways that you can be with people if you do go to camp with someone, nothing wrong with that, right? But if you're just looking at the opportunity of going to camp, what you're saying, I believe, Eden, is don't say no because you don't know anyone. Don't say no because, you're concerned that you don't have a friend there. It doesn't matter because within probably 24 hours to 48 hours, right? You're going to have friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they're lifelong friends, right? That's kind of what happens there. Yeah. So I think that's really, really awesome advice around that too. So what else do you think, maybe just one more thing, because this is great. And I want to keep, talking a little bit more because I think we're being helpful to kids thinking about camp. It's like camp time. So kids are getting a little bit nervous. What else do you think maybe a kid might feel nervous about? I
mean, there's like, you're without your phone. You're like I think that was definitely a big thing for me because, I used to, especially back then, I really like to watch TV shows and all of that. And I'm like, so I'm just not gonna, I go for 7 weeks. So I was like, I couldn't imagine not having like being able to watch TV for like almost 2 months straight. But I think that definitely was much easier than I thought. It was very easy, actually. I didn't even think about it. And I did still get to watch TV on rainy days and stuff, but you're always with your friends. Like, you're never bored and you're never looking like to like distract yourself with like a screen. You're like, oh, let's go play basketball. Like, you're just like hanging out with your friends 24/7. There's no need to go on your phone. Like, you just like you're with your friends. And I think that's just really great. And you just can talk. Like, you're never really bored. Like, I really never found myself bored at camp because I'm always was either like talking to a friend, doing a really fun activity. And yeah, I think that's just like really great about camp.
It's so interesting how kids would be nervous about not having their phones, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just really, really interesting. And I find that kids feel less stressed and anxious because they're not, once they get used to not being on their phone for a couple of days, they're much happier. And when it's time to go back home, back to school, they realize like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have my phone tomorrow. And I always tell them to think about like what it felt like to not be on that phone 24/7, and to really make a choice when they go back to say, how much time do I really want to spend? You were talking about being on your phone because you were saying there's a lot of boredom, right? So that's when you would tend to like, oh, I'm bored, I'm just going to go chat with a friend or go on whatever you do on it. And so you're right, camp isn't boring. There's probably not a boring moment being in camp. There's always an interesting person to talk to. There's always an activity to do. And and at the end of the day, you're so tired, you just want to go to bed, right? That's a fun day at camp. So yeah, it doesn't fulfill any need for you at camp to have your phone there, which is why a lot of camps don't allow cell phones, right? No electronic devices. And people go, oh, that's going to be hard. And maybe it is hard. You know what I find, Eden, is hard for some kids? Games. A lot of kids that spend a lot of time on video games. I think you're in a gaming chair behind you. Is that a gaming chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So that I think is hard. But again, it's not like you have a lacrosse field in your backyard, or like you say, I don't have a lake, in my backyard. So you do have other things to keep you busy. So I think to realize, like, don't think about what you're missing. Like, I don't have my games, I don't have my phone. Think about what you have that you don't have at home. And I think if you put your focus on those things, like, I have friends with me all day long. I have a lake that I can go swim in, or I have a lacrosse field that I've never played that sport. If you focus on what you do have, I think that makes it a lot easier to get used to. I agree with you. Like, after a few days, you're just not even gonna think about your phone. But if you're worried and nervous about not having your phone, which is what your book is about, it's about getting ready for camp, right? Just know that you can trust Eden here, that you will adjust. And maybe trust Allison that when you're ready to go back, you'll be thinking, oh my gosh, I have to go back and I miss my phone, but I don't want to waste all my time on my phone like that, the same way, So cool. Well, this has been great. I'm thrilled to meet you. You're an awesome kid. You're a happy camper, which is, what Happy Camper Live is all about. And we created this platform, Eden, so that everybody in the world, every kid in the world can experience summer camp, no matter where they are geographically, whether they can afford to go to camp, whether maybe they have a health reason why they can't go to camp. So Happy Camper Live is here for kids that don't have the benefit of going to camp. That being said, we are all about summer camp. We can even teach kids how to, to find a camp, what to pack for camp, all of those kind of things. But the most important thing is that everybody understands that there is a value in going into summer camp, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because it makes a huge difference in your life, right? You wouldn't have been an author of your first book if you didn't go to summer camp, right? You think you'll write another book one day?
I think it was more of like a one and done because
One and done.
I was very passionate about like this subject, but yeah.
All right. Well, if you do, you'll let me know. All right. And we'll have you back. And if you want to host some podcasts with me one day, that would be fun too, because you've got that going on. You're really great to talk to. And I'm sure it's been wonderful for kids to hear, all about first time at summer camp. So thank you for being here, Eden. And everybody, this is notes from the Camp Bunk, a guide for first-time campers from a camper, Eden Martin. And Eden, you can get this book on Amazon, right?
Yes.
And do you know any other places? I got mine on Amazon. Do you know any other places where they can get it?
Yes. So it's available at lots of camp stores like Denny's and everything summer camp. It's the Strand and in New York City, and yeah, it's just available at many stores and Amazon as well.
That's awesome. That's great. And you can find a Happy Camper Live podcast anywhere that podcasts are heard. Okay. So hopefully we'll have a lot of kids listening to your podcast. And Eden, thank you for taking the time to be with me. I wish you an awesome summer at camp. And, just let's talk again. It would be really fun. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a moment to shine